at the end of the day, there's only so many ways, say, to like make a sandwich or to work with a company you consult with. But what you can do that no one else can do is how you approach that consulting process or even that sales process and the unique things you can say that attract the right people to you and then repel the wrong ones.
Are you a consulting business owner seeking a better way to scale to your next million in revenue? Accelerate Sales Podcast features other experts who have cracked the code to predictable revenues with proven sales systems that quickly increase revenue and get you on the fast track back to doing what you do best. Now let's accelerate your sales with today's episode.
Welcome to the Accelerate Sales Podcast. If it's your first time and you love what you either hear or watch, please subscribe. And if you're a regular, we always appreciate those reviews, in particular, the iTunes reviews. But it's so great to have you as a regular listener. So all the notes, all the links, everything will be transcribed. But if you want to take notes, certainly do that. And what you'll notice is I'll look down a lot during the interview. It's because I want to capture so much value for you out of what the guests are saying so that you get the best knowledge put into the show notes as possible. So you're going to learn three key things from our guests today. So one is the importance of messaging. If you ever felt like you do a great job, but it just doesn't communicate well to the rest of the world, this is one for you. The second is a framework on exactly how to do that. He talks about the 5 Ps to do that. And then the third one is the importance of video, where to use it in the sales process and how it can help you accelerate your sales. So today's guest started in corporate and they were in both video and media production. Then they worked for one of the biggest online teaching platforms in the world, Teachable. So they did some advising for them. And then they decided to leave and help entrepreneurs better communicate their message to the world. And they've built a wonderful business, and definitely he shares a lot of value to you today. So what I'll do is hand you over now to Dallin Nead from Content Supply. Welcome, Dallin Nead from Content Supply to the Accelerate Sales Podcast. Great to have you here, Dallin.
Yeah, good to be here. Happy to be with you, Paul, and to get connected and talk to your audience.
Yeah, well, I've really enjoyed us meeting each other off air, and I want you to share all your wisdom now on air. So why don't we kick off with, what are sort of the clients you love to work with? Who's an ideal client for you?
Yeah, oftentimes we find entrepreneurs and online business owners to be our best fit clients, and typically those who struggle with standing out. Oftentimes when you can stand out and profit from that, then you are really our best fit client. Those who are seeking for a way to go from invisible, unseen, and unheard to really top of mind with their perfect fit customer. So,
surely consultants and business owners, are seen everywhere. They surely they don't have that problem. Like I know for myself, right? It's been a never-ending journey. I remember, I had my transplant in 2019, and my doctors finally said, look, you can now go and be seen, right? Because you're not going to let anyone down. You're going to be safe, healthy for quite some time. And I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? Right? Like, how do I be seen? So when, not everyone's got the experience or the certain personal experience I've had, but when people do come to you and say, hey, look, I've got an important message to get out here, but it's stuck in a bottle, right? I want to spread it with the world. What are some of the key things that you help them with?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing we focus on is just getting clear on what they want out of this. Like, what is their clear vision of what their business is meant to do for themselves, their family, and then their customers through the process? And when they can describe that in detail and paint that picture, then we can build backwards from there. And I think ultimately most products or services are kind of built from that end in mind, but then you kind of customize that journey of what it looks like, say from our perspective is like, what kind of message can you tell with content that will help you get to that end result? And then maybe you set a new goalpost, to go towards. And in doing that and getting clear on that vision, part of that journey comes down to getting clear on what you need to say in order to attract the right people. And that is called messaging. And then when you're confident on knowing how to talk about what you do and why in a powerful way that attracts people, then that can fit inside of a simple marketing plan, a way to attract new customers to your business, to capture new leads, and to make more sales. And then with that, you can accelerate that marketing and getting your message out there with your choice of content. And the content is the only way you can actually be visible. Like we're doing here, Paul, we got a video recording, we've got an audio version of this and other repurposed opportunities that really allow this message to be seen and heard by more people. And so it's choosing to show up and get visible so you can get more paid and impact other people's lives as well as yours. Yeah.
Yeah. And I look, a lot of people that I help have done a great job. They've normally come from a corporate background. They're, set up their consulting business, or they're a SaaS partner, and they've used their network, their existing network, to sort of get, the business off the ground, which completely makes sense, right? I always recommend that. But yeah, then they say, look, I know what I do. I'm really good at what I do. But when I read, my LinkedIn profile, when I, look at my website, it just doesn't communicate what I do. I really struggle with what I do and then how do I actually make it more attractive to people. So how do you help them? And I don't know if you've got a structural way of actually helping them bridge that gap between I'm really good at what I do, but it's not coming through in any of my content, wherever that is.
Yeah. Part of it comes down to messaging, where you figure out what is my unique approach. Oftentimes we call it a framework, because at the end of the day, there's only so many ways, say, to like make a sandwich or to work with a company you consult with. But what you can do that no one else can do is how you approach that consulting process or even that sales process, and the unique things you can say that attract the right people to you and then repel the wrong ones. And so when you can get clear on what that uniqueness looks like, oftentimes it comes down to the perspective and the frameworks you're able to share. For example, like with us, like part of our framework within Content Supply is the Content Supply framework itself. No one else can say like, hey, like we help you get X, Y, Z results by implementing Content Supply framework. They can't say that because that's our brand. That's our framework name. And within that, then we can customize that experience based on the client. So as far as, going from corporate, which I can completely relate with, I was in a massive global corporation before I went out on my own and built Content Supply. Getting a clear understanding on how you want to stand out and what do you want to be known for and what that unique approach is. And then it's just as simple as, I'm putting it simple in quotes, right? Simple as translating that uniqueness and that message to how you show up online, which is, as a consultant, one of the, if not the best place you actually need to show up. And in doing so, that message, that uniqueness can go on your website. It can go inside of a lead magnet where you can capture new leads. It can be throughout your entire sales and marketing process in order to get more clients to stand out and to really 10x your revenue through the process.
Yeah. So if I understand this, I'll put it into relation to myself at the moment. So, whether it's called a genius model or signature system, mine is the Accelerate Sales program. It's got three key things. It's got connect, convert, and collaborate. And then under that, there's, components. So if you think of, for those that are watching this on a video, I'm making circles there. That's like a Venn diagram. It's got those three things. In the middle is scale. So that's what I consider my key point of difference in my messaging. Is that an example of what the outcome would be going through your framework? Is that what we're talking about, or we're talking about something different?
100%. Yeah, 100%. You've hit the nail on the head, Paul, because and like you just broke down, we recommend that you simplify it down to 3, maybe 5 steps. It's interesting, just kind of a quick tangent story. One of the books I love that I read in the last year or so is from Bob Iger. He's now the chairman of the board for the Disney company, Walt Disney Company, but he was the CEO for about 15 years, made a lot of incredible moves from all these acquisitions to build up, the equity and the wealth of Walt Disney Company, which we all know about. But something that is interesting about his story, it's kind of like a biography, like Ride of a Lifetime is the book. He talks about his campaign journey to really sell himself to become the next CEO back in, I think, 2005. And he started consulting with actually a political friend of his, a political consultant. And Bob comes to this friend and he's like, okay, I've got like these 20 ideas of like all this entire plan of what I want to do to improve the company, contribute my own unique like legacy into the Walt Disney Company. And the political consultant basically said, this is great. And I don't know if he literally rips his paper up, but he's like, this is too complicated. Like only pick 3. And so that's what Bob walked away with. He's like, okay, I'm going to simplify this down to 3 steps, 3 parts of my plan. And then this becomes his key message that he repeats everywhere he goes, whether he's meeting with the board of directors who will eventually hire him, or he's meeting with employees in different global offices around the world. And I would consider, as a consultant, your framework, your signature process, like Paul said, as something that should be simplified down and an easy way to talk about, and expect to repeat yourself hundreds of times over, because people will hear your message and your unique process through different formats, different types of content.
Yeah, look, and I think it's, for me, I changed mine last year, and it was just a defining moment in my business. I've sort of always had, from a corporate background, I had a version of it, but it wasn't crystal clear. And I think for me, it's 3 key things. So one is that now I've actually got it so I can create content, because a lot of people say, well, I don't have a content strategy. And, obviously they come to someone like you to solve that. But to me now, I actually know what I can produce content on, because it gives me a framework for that. Then next is in the sales process, where I can actually go through and now say, well, look, these are all the components that make up success for effectively growing sales within your consulting or SaaS partners business. Have you got these elements? So it gives me a brilliant benchmarking exercise where they're saying, well, you know what? I don't have any of this. And I'm like, well, you can either get it yourself, or I can fast track working with someone like me. And the third thing is the delivery model, right? Then when you actually deliver it, it's clear what people are going to get. It's like you will get these tangible outcomes, rather than, hey, I'll customize everything for you. And people are like, well, I actually want to know, if I'm going to invest that sort of money, I want to know what I get. So that's how it's worked for me. What I'd love to know is how you help people create that framework, right? You talked about you've got your framework, but a lot of people say, I don't know where to start. I don't know what's unique. I've got all this IP. I can't simplify it to the Disney example. Tell me how you would help someone go through that process.
Yeah. Oh, I love this question. Well, to me, it comes back to the brand story. What is this journey that you're going to take your hero of a customer on to get from point A, the start of their journey, to point Z, the end of their journey? And that end should result in a success, right? Whether it's 10xing their revenue, whether it is maybe quitting their full-time job, depending on what kind of consultancy you run. And in doing so, and how I break down a brand story is into 5 different P's. So the first P is people. So how do you describe your best fit customer? What keeps them up at night? What do they dream about? What is their vision? And then the next one is problem. So what stops them from getting what they want? What stops them from achieving their vision? And the next one is perspective. So what do they need to believe in themselves, their environment, maybe the tools and resources they have in order to be successful and to get what they want? And then in creating that belief, the next P is the plan. So what plan do they need to follow? And oftentimes this plan becomes those 3 steps, and that 3 steps of your unique framework and in that journey. And then the last P is payoff. So what is that end result? What is that objective, or what does success look like, in the end? And, it's kind of like the makings of the hero's journey, which is very popular, right? To break down story. But what it also does is it gives you all these talking points to know how to talk about what your customers need to hear. Because ultimately what you say in any type of content should be about who you serve and who's going to eventually pay you for your consulting services or products. And so I would say from those 5 Ps is focusing on the P of plan. And in doing so, you can understand, okay, within this plan, yeah, maybe there's 50 steps ultimately that I need to guide a customer through to be successful. But within those 50, like how can you categorize those? Because I guarantee, Paul, what you just described with your simple laid out plan, it sounds simple on the surface, but when you actually guide customers through it, they're not really going to know it. But it's actually can be fairly complicated behind the scenes, and when you dig into it deeper. And the same thing goes with with our 3-step process of messaging, marketing, and medium, is that the messaging process within that, right? We have that 5 Ps brand story framework, which gives you clarity to know how to talk about what you do. Or within our marketing step, we have the 3 phases of marketing: generating traffic, capture more leads, and make more sales. The 3 phases of that journey. So within each area, you may have many more steps, but just think about simplifying. The more simple you can keep your message, your unique process into 3 steps, maybe upwards to 5, then the more easily your perfect customers will understand what you do and how you can help them. And that will really come down to how you then take the next steps, right? And to package it up, sell it as a product, sell it as a service.
Yeah, and I think the one that catches a lot of people out, I think, is making them too feature-based. So what I always say to people, it should be benefits. So if you look at my 3, I've got my 3 Cs, and then, for example, under Connect, one of them is fill the funnel, right? So, it's what's the absolute end benefit, right? That's what, I put in my diagram, so to speak. But then under that, like you said, there's certain elements, which one of them is identify your ideal client. So I think, that's where I see a lot of people tripping up, is they become too feature-based rather than benefit-based. Do you see that in some of the clients that you work with?
Oh, all the time. All the time. It's so easy. It usually comes down to packaging what your product or what your entire offer looks like. Your consulting offer. And with that, you're like, oh my gosh, let's break down. You're going to get 3 hours a week with me to do this. You're going to get all of these things. And it's like, you're trying to sell them on all these little cool perks. When at the end of the day, it's like, you think of taking a sales call. And this is one of my favorite things with taking sales calls. I still do in a lot of ways in my business. Part of it is because I haven't delegated that yet, and that's on me. But part of it is I love learning from customers directly, and it's manageable still. But what I'm getting at is within the sales process, I just love to listen, and I love to ask, what do you want? And then when the more somebody can talk about what they want, that is the benefit, right? Hey, I'm working too much in my business. I want time away to actually take a vacation, or I'm doing this too much, or, I want more time with my kids. I want to go do my hobbies more. Like Paul, you and I were talking about hobbies a little bit before we hit record, and people want non-business things sometimes. Yeah. Money is a huge part. I want to 10X my sales, that's a benefit, business benefit, but it can dig even deeper. And what's cool, especially as a consultant, is that you can enable parts of those dreams or those benefits to be realized. And then the journey, and then, the features may come in that sales call, or they may come later on based on questions they ask, but they become sold the more that they can describe what they want. And the more that you can also kind of insert your understanding of what problems are keeping them from getting what they want, which still honestly kind of relates to that benefit, then they see that you have most likely the solution to their problem.
Yeah, look, I totally agree. And I think, that one of the reasons I love working with people that run their own business is because, there is a direct correlation. I think, in corporate, that separation is a little, it's when you look at business wins and personal wins, it's a little bit harder to define those. But when you're working with people that, they are their business in a lot of ways, I think it's important, and really getting to that. And, certainly, I say to all of my clients that I mentor is that, the first meeting, you should never even talk about your product. That comes in the second meeting. All you should really talk about is, what's important to them as you articulated. So I know we haven't got much more time in this section left, but what I'd love to dial a little bit more into is video, because obviously one of the best ways to communicate that story is through video. And I know you've got also, a video company as well. But if I'm a consultant and I'm looking to tell my story, what are some, tips that you can give me to help me have, a story that really connects with those ideal clients?
This has to do with all types of content, but specifically video, because that involves everything, right? The sight, the sound, that experience is having one conversation a day using video. And that conversation can literally come with the video tools you have at your fingertips, which most often is a webcam. Paul and I are both using upgraded webcams, so to speak, more professional cameras, but it can literally start with your webcam or your phone. And connecting with your customers and having a conversation not only gives you research and understanding more about what their problems are, where they're at in their lives or their business, but also gives you access to possibly invite them to take the next step with you. But I find in some of the most compliments I've gotten through my sales process and those efforts is with the power of following up with video. And there's some great tools out there like Video Ask or Warm Welcome that literally allows you to embed a GIF, that animated image inside of an email, or put a intercom icon on your website where it's a video, motion. They click on it and then you say a quick little 1-minute message. But understanding that the customer journey can be better supported when you insert video into every single step of that journey. And that step starts with an ad on LinkedIn or Facebook. And I say ad, I don't always mean a paid ad. It can literally be a post that will come out, from you, Paul, with this podcast that's video. But then they click through and they're like, oh, I'm going to go to your website and I'm going to go learn more or read more about this episode or the show. And then there's the embedded version, maybe from YouTube, and that's another video version. And then they get linked up. So it's pulling them to your platform or your website and getting them to stay there because you're guiding them on a story, on a journey throughout each step, all the way to becoming a new lead to eventually buying a product or service.
Yeah, look, I agree. And I think, a couple of key ones that have really worked for me is on that featured section of your LinkedIn, have your story there. Right. So if you go to my LinkedIn profile, you can see I've got I think it's about a 3-minute story, but it's, it is really helping people connect. Then the second component is when I connect with people on LinkedIn, I then send them that story. So if they haven't had a chance to see it on my LinkedIn profile, when I reach out to them and say, look, I'm reaching out to you. We haven't spoken, but if you want to know more about me before you say yes, here's my story. Right. And, we talked before, your story's got to be unique, etc. But I think that's another great point. And then the third one is, having you on video in your sales page. So if you're going to send someone, say, to an application page, actually explain it, because so often I've heard people say, I read through the page, but can you explain it to me? Right. But once I put that video at the top of the page where they can get to actually hear me say it in my own words, it makes a huge difference. So they're the three things. Now, I do want to go back to that specific question around story, though. If I'm going to, tell my story, a lot of people say, well, how personal do I make it? What do I put in it? If you just gave us a couple of ingredients in that story cake, what would those ingredients be?
Don't make it about you. Okay. Especially from hooking your customer. Far too often, your brand story, whether it's the hero video on your website or it's on your about section, is all about the history of your company or of your journey. That's nice to have. And it's not like you shouldn't have that on your website or throughout the sales funnel. But ultimately, people want to see themselves in that story. So if you can guarantee that your story is an exact framework that your customers follow, which as consultants, it can often look like that, then definitely reference parts of your journey and your story to show authority and understanding and empathy. So within that, And I would say focus on some key areas. And Paul, you already referenced it with like the benefits feature element.
Yeah.
Is that focus on the problem that's keeping your customer stuck. Within, if it's a brand story video you've got, or even sales copy on your page, focus on the problem, focus on the payoff or the benefits, and then focus on the plan to get them to be successful and to get them there. And in doing that, that can just be a simple way to package up and insert it all throughout your messaging, especially videos.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, look, before we go into the next section, what I want to ask you is, do you have the right system, the right sales system to get more referrals into your business? And, your network might be, all dried up, as I mentioned before. So you want to go beyond that. But how do you do that? So we've been talking with Dallin about, having that, whether it's, I call it the Genius model, the signature system. So what you can go in is answer 9 questions, which are the key questions that I believe, or the key things that you need to have that system. You can go in and answer those questions. And at the end of that, it'll take you about 3 minutes. At the end of that, then based on your score, which is obviously the gap, then I'll have a call with you to work out a plan for you. So it's not a sales call, it's a plan where you can close those gaps to get those more referrals. So just go to paulhigginsmentoring.com/pulse and you will be able to get instant access to that pulse. And it will also be in the links and also all the other great information that Dallin's used or mentioned so far. We'll also put that in the show notes as well. So Dallin, what we're going to do now is go through a bit of a deep dive on you and your sales skills. You ready for that?
Let's go for it. Yeah.
All right, great. So the first one is, what's one sales habit that helps you accelerate your sales?
Video. Showing up with video and having daily conversations with my customers.
Brilliant. And obviously you mentioned a couple of technology tools, but what's another technology that helps you to accelerate your sales?
My phone.
Your phone?
Honestly, yeah, like just simplify it down. I mean, there's so many apps out there, but my phone allows me to do video uninhibited, doesn't have to be all polished like this, still look good. And within a few seconds, immediately send messages that empower my sales through video.
Yeah.
And you can go social platforms anywhere.
And which side of the divide are you? Apple or Android?
Oh, Apple. I've used both, but I'm more of an Apple person now. All my tools are interconnected with Apple.
Yeah. To me, Apple and Google, you can't go wrong, i.e. software and hardware. So the next one is, what's the best source for you of getting help to accelerate your sales for your business?
To me, it is network. It's the people that I know. It's the time I spend with others like you on this call, right? It's not here to generate sales. It's more of like, let's establish a relationship first. And whatever comes of it, collaborations and stuff. But I think investing time with people has become not only the best source of sales and easy sales at that because of referrals and things like that. But it gives me better insight into what's going on in the industry and what other people are up to.
All right, brilliant. Well, the last question is the big one at the end, right? So out of all the amazing wisdom you shared with us today, what's one key action someone, i.e. you listening right now, can take to 10x their sales?
Choose to be different and to stand out, and to create your unique sales process or your unique process, that is. We talked about your signature process through this, and that does ultimately help you stand out. It's all within the same exact basis of, what makes you unique, what makes you different. And in doing so, I guarantee that you will 10x your revenue and sales because more people will know more clearly what exactly you do and how you can help them.
Yeah, look, I think that's so true. And as they always say, confused buyer never buys. And I used to have confused buyers until I got my messaging right. So, for me, and I know all the people that I mentor, what you're saying is absolutely on point. And if you want to find out more about Dallin and exactly how he can help you, so if you think that your messaging isn't, so what you do isn't what you're showing up in the world as, just go to contentsupply.com. And also, he's given a great resource. So if you go to videosupply.com/resource, and there's a messaging guide there for you. It's just one of the first that comes up, but that's videosupply.com/resource. Now, once again, we'll have all of those links in the show notes, so you can go and grab them there. But Dallin, it was great to hear your story today, but also I do think that this is a real hidden gem for all consultants out there to really accelerate their sales and their business. So wonderful having you on today, and thank you for sharing all your wisdom.
Of course. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Paul. Thanks.
I really enjoyed that conversation with Dallin, and as you could tell, it's very much in line with my methodology around having that genius model or the signature system to then basically be the core of what everything else is communicated around. I love how he gave some examples of using video and some tools to do that. So it was great. So if you loved this, why don't you let Dallin know? So why don't you go and share on socials some of the key things that you learn? Other people will get value for that, but also Dallin, I know, will be thrilled and he'll get in contact with you based on that. So all of the notes are transcribed, and also all the links that are mentioned will be there in the show notes. And why don't you go and tell maybe 1, 10, or even 100 people about this, where you know that they're struggling to get their messaging right. Share it with them, become the sales hero for them. Also, if you want to know if you do have the right sales system to get those incremental referrals outside of your network, go to paulhigginsmentoring.com/pulse. And also, please check out past shows, including the solo shows. So please take action to accelerate your sales.
I'm fired up after today's episode. What about you? But hey, before you go, learning is just one piece of the puzzle. Now it's time to put today's strategy into action. Head over now to today's show page at paulhigginsmentoring.com/podcast and share how you'll put it into action. Be sure to head over to your favorite podcast platform and subscribe, rate, and review the show. Tell me what your favorite episode is. And don't wait 1 minute more to gain access to your pulse check at paulhigginsmentoring.com. This could be the difference between struggling to get more leads and making this next quarter your best one yet.